Right, so this week we have JP McGee from Ireland, Donegal. James, tell me a bit about yourself.
Full-time farmer, sheepdog trialist, I suppose, for 20 odd years now, kind of full-time at the trial and that. Started, probably most popular maybe with a bitch called Becca. Won the national in 05 with her, was reserve in the Supreme that year. Won the national in 07 again with her. Placed numerous times in the Supreme. I think she was a 7-time Irish team member over her lifetime, and I suppose that she's most famous maybe for winning the World Trial in 2011.
Right on. Just a few wee prizes she got there then.
Yeah.
She's brave and consistent now, to be honest. Tell me this then, before we go into the dogs, River, what sort of sheep do you keep? What sort of cattle do you keep? Just for people that don't know, to have an idea.
Well, we kind of changed the sheep enterprise a little bit there in this last few months. I was running skiing in Scottish black-faced ewes, lanner types, and I sold them there September time, and actually bought Mayo black-faced ewes, running those now, and put a Charlie Ram with them this year. Whether it's wise or not, I don't know. I'll maybe tell you better maybe August, September next year.
No, they say they're easy damned, to be fair. Like, they say MAOs will just spit them out. They're handy damned.
They're fairly good. I'm alright. I suppose the biggest issue I had with the lanners, to be honest, was there were too many barn ewes when it come to scanning time, and just not enough lambs out of them.
What made you go for the Mayo instead of the Swale?
I suppose availability, maybe. It'd be easier to get the Mayos here than it would the Swales. Like, maybe if you're in the UK or that, it'll be a lot easier to get the Swales. I've never had Swales, to be honest, so I don't know much about them.
I have a win there off them now. See, if you lamb them as hoggets, they if you lamb as hoggets and you pull the lamb out, they don't leave you. They stick with the lamb like you'd swear the lamb 2 or 3 times before. They're wild as hares. Yeah. Wild as hares until the lambs come out, and as soon as the lamb comes out, they'll stay with that lamb. Like they'll not leave it. Crazy how first time lambers are from holiday.
Yes. The Mayo herself is pretty much like that now, but that's maybe once. I just can't say it from a first time lammer, but the Mayo will stay very good with their lambs. I've had them in the past. They're a great mothering instinct in them.
And then with regards to the cattle, pardon?
At lambing time, they tend to take off.
Aye, they can be flighty.
Yeah.
And regards to cattle, what have you got?
Cattle, we're running probably about 70 or so kind of dairy bred bullock to beef type thing. Taking in calves at about maybe 10 days, fortnight old, and taking them through to beef, finishing them, squeezing them, and taking them through to beef. So there's 70 or so kind of for a kiln each year, and then there'll be 70 younger ones coming on as well. So that kind of keeps
there's plenty of work with any boys at the start too, when they're still in the milk. There's plenty of work with them.
There is, I suppose, to be honest. It's James and Laura do a lot of that work. That's son and daughter, so they seem to like it, so we let them at it.
No bar. Right, well, is there anything else you're into outside of dogs before we get into the dogs?
Not really, no. It's kind of dogs morning, noon and night, to be honest. That's what makes us tick as a book.
That's fair enough, right? So what age were you then when you first started trialing?
Took it up seriously, I suppose, when I was 30, maybe. 2003. 2002, I seen an advert for, it was the international trial at Seaford in County Down. It was the local livestock market in Sonora here. I worked on it, and I seen an advert for it, and I went up to watch it. I went up for the final day on the Saturday, and I had always kind of watched One Man and His Dog and that growing up, and would have been very interested in it, and used to maybe try and replicate some of that when I was younger. But I never really understood the scale of, the Supreme and that until I landed at Seaford, and I was just flabbergasted, to be honest. I was amazed at the scale, the distance the dogs could go out, and, turning them back for the second packet of sheep on the international shed. And just that day, I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. I bought a whistle that day at the trial and made up a set of whistles on the way home. And the next day I started training, and I said to myself, I'm going to do this. And the rest is kind of history. But I was just amazed.
I suppose whenever you see the Supreme too, it nearly makes One Man His Dog look like Boy Scouts. It's a complete difference in night and day. Like,
It is, and seeing it on television and seeing it in reality, One Man and His Dog, any of the ones that I have seen anyway or competed at, I think the biggest maybe that was maybe about just shy of 400 yards. But the Supreme, then, it's just a different level, just a different level.
No, fair enough. Right, on to the next question then. How many, you might not know this answer, how many times have you been on the team, and how many times have you been in the Supreme?
I'm going to hazard a guess at this. I would say it's probably approaching the mid-20s at this stage that I've been on the team.
Yeah.
And I honestly can't say how many times I've made it through to the Supreme, but I would hazard a guess maybe of 10 to a dozen, something like that. Now, that's a guess, and I stand to be corrected on that.
You're going rightly whenever you don't remember how many. That's a good enough side.
Yes. Becca was through a number of times. I believe Becca was possibly second, third, maybe fourth, and possibly 15th, something like that. She was there a number of times, but we just couldn't get the crown with her. We tried hard, but it was always elusive.
No, fair enough. And what would you? I know you've won both international and the Supreme and the World, but in your opinion, what's the biggest achievement you had in the dog world so far?
I suppose the international, I think to most people, and say the home nations here, that's what people aspire to. The world trial definitely is a big one too. But probably that world trial with Becca on that big course, and with the challenge in sheep and that, it has to go down as one of the good ones. Another one that I really, really enjoyed, I ended up third in it, I think, was in 2019 Supreme in Scotland with Jess, daughter of Silver.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that run. It just felt special to do that, with such a young dog and such a big course. It was very rewarding to to put up the run that she did.
I was there actually. I watched that run. She probably added a couple of zeros to the end of her price. That day she did raving well.
Yeah. She was a great young bitch. She was great. I ended up selling her after that, and a whole lot of people said that I was totally and utterly crazy, and never should have sold her, and but COVID came in the next year, and there was no trials happening, and I like training young dogs. I like coming out with young dogs and that, and I kind of had the idea that if I keep keep dogs on for a period of time, I don't put in the same effort, if you know what I mean, to try and train young dogs coming forward again. So I suppose I threw down the gauntlet to myself to try and, find another one, so to speak. So that's why we ended up selling her, just basically because COVID had come in that year and there was no trials. If there had been no COVID, I probably wouldn't have sold her, to be honest.
No. Well, then that puts us on to the next question. I think I know what you're going to say, but you might surprise me. What's the best dog in your opinion of the dogs you've had?
I think it's a difficult one to answer, and I think it's maybe unfair to some of the dogs for me to answer it. To pick a specific dog. There's dogs that I've had over the years, and if I maybe had them now with the experience that I have now, I could have maybe changed them. Maybe the outcome of some of the things, but like Becca is probably the most famous dog. And like I really enjoyed running Becca. I could run Becca at the trials, like the local trials and that, and it would just maybe in my mind be mediocre, and one day a particular trialist came to me and said, I actually ran Becca and she just didn't go as good as I would have liked, and I retired because I don't know, someone once described me as a perfectionist. I don't know if I am or not, but I kind of like it to be what I would describe as right, or my right. But anyway, on this particular day, she didn't please me and I retired. And this particular trialist came over and he says, there's a man came here today to see Becca, and disappointed, and why did you retire? And I said, well, you tell him if he wants to see Becca to go to the bigger stage to see Becca. And like I wasn't being flippant or being smart by saying that, but Becca seemed to up her game when it came to the bigger occasion. She would run, in my eyes, kind of mediocre at the smaller trials, but she seemed to realise and understand when it was a bigger stage or, a bigger event. She really pulled out all the stops. So, like, Becca and Silver, I suppose, have been the most noted dogs maybe that I've been successful with, but I've had lots of other dogs that have been, very good to me. And like every dog that I've had, I've kind of learned a great deal from them. So I'm not going to call out and say a specific dog, but I really admire all the dogs that I've had, and hopefully maybe ones that I will have in the future. It's a partnership with the dogs, I find, and like as I said, I really enjoy running young dogs and training young dogs. I suppose I'm maybe a wee bit like a drug addict, or that I get an adrenaline fix out of doing that.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I was thinking it was going to be Becca, but that's my. I'll stick with Becca whether it's right or wrong.
Everyone has their favorites and that, but I genuinely don't pick one over the other because I don't think it's fair to the dogs.
Yeah. No, just whenever I was sort of first getting into watching trials, I think a lot of it in your head, whenever you first start and you see the top handlers, I think it follows you the whole way through that you stick, you always admire them top handlers, and then whenever you start maybe the top dogs, you always sort of have a soft spot for them top dogs too the whole way through,
Yes.
Right. I think whenever I first started watching trials, she would have been sort of coming on the scene then, so you always sort of remember that, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But,
yes.
No. What would you say then is your favourite open course and your favourite international course?
Probably my favourite open course in Ireland, I would say, is maybe Castlewell. I really love running in Castlewell in the Forest Park there. I think it's around 700 or 800 yards of an outrun. And it's not the widest of courses or that, but it's long, and just there's a great level of satisfaction in getting a dog down Castlewellan course. Like whenever I started trialing 20 odd years ago, I went to Castlewellan, and I don't think you would have needed many fingers on your second hand to get the number of dogs that got down, pretty clean. That has changed dramatically in the last number of years. That there's a big array of dogs now that kind of get that outrun pretty good. But I really do enjoy running that course. The sheep tend to be kind of quite challenging on it as well. It's the blackies and that they're lively and they're just it's a good course. As for an international course, never been asked that one before. So. There's been a number of good courses over the years. I suppose maybe the most challenging course that I think I ever run on was that one in 2019 with Jess. Was it? I can't remember the name of it. Was up in the north of Scotland.
Brecon, I think, was it?
Brecon, that's right. Another very good course, which was an enjoyable one to run at, was where the World Trial was up in Scotland as well. They had an international there.
What
did you call it? 10, yeah. That was
Fern Farms, yeah.
I enjoyed running that. Yeah. Fern Farm, that's right. No, that I really enjoyed that course as well now. So those are probably maybe my two favourite, that one and 10 and Castlewellan for an open trial. And maybe second best, if you like, on the open trial one was a course that Ned O'Keefe ran down in the estate that he worked in.
I know where you're on about it.
That was a very good course as well now. Very good course.
Fair enough.
Sheep were very good as well.
Well then, what would you say then? There's no real method of the way I ask these questions. I just have a list and I just ask them as they come. But what type of handling? How would you describe your handling? Like, there's different handlers out there, and everybody has an idea of what they think sort of handler they are, or whatever. But what do you think?
I would like to consider myself kind of being fairly quiet as handler. I suppose I have a dislike for a lot of loud, roaring at the dog, kind of really sharp whistles, and especially when, say, the dog and the sheep and that is close by you. I think it's a habit on the handlers, from the handler's point of view. I don't think it's necessary. I like to think I'm, I suppose, maybe pretty methodical in what I'm doing, when I'm running the dog and that, and just like to try and keep it calm. Now, occasionally I'll let out the odd kind of reminder to the dog now and again of a shout here and there, but generally speaking, I like to consider myself as being fairly quiet. Maybe other people will say, well, I don't know who you're listening to or who you're watching if you think I'm quiet, but that's the way I think I am.
And do you like to have your dog under like complete authority completely, or do you like your dog to maybe flow on a wee bit as well? The way there's different handlers there, that they some seem to let the dog free on.
I like to see a kind of flow and run. I like to try and I like to run my dogs if possible, where there are not so many stops as such. There might be slow downs and that, but I like to keep it moving, somewhere between, I suppose, a brisk walk and a wee jog, that type of thing. I kind of learned maybe the hard way in the beginning that if you're too nice to your sheep around the course and take too much time and just walk them around kind of like ducks, generally speaking, on the bigger courses, the international or that anyway, you could be struggling to finish. I always now I'm of the opinion, to try and get them around the course as fast as possible without kind of, obviously, stressing the sheep type of thing, but taking them around on a nice brisk kind of walk and give yourself optimum time to try and finish, because it doesn't matter how good you are around the course. If you don't finish, you're in trouble.
No, fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
So whenever you have a young pup starting out there, a young dog or whatever, is there a type of dog you prefer? Do you like a young dog and rough and testing you all the time, or do you like one that maybe is a bit calmer of itself, doesn't get into as much trouble, thinks a bit, or is there a certain type of dog that you like?
There is a certain type of dog that I like, and I suppose people are going to say now, well, sure, he's obviously going to say he likes that because he's promoting it, he's trying to sell it, and that's kind of, I suppose, our own line. But like what Silver and Sid and Becca kind of has left and produced, and what we've kind of bred from there is that they're a different type of dog, in that they're very intelligent, in my mind. And sometimes maybe they're too intelligent, I think, for some people to train, because it's not a case of a lot of dogs that I've had in the past, kind of before I come to them, you would be kind of quite regimental, if you like, and quite strict on the training and that, and you could almost, if you like, bully them into your way of thinking and what you want to do, pressurize them into doing it. If you take that approach with kind of the line we have now, they tend to say, basically the dog is saying, no, I don't like this and I'm not going to do it. If you're going to act like that with me, I'm not going to play ball. So you have to kind of have a different approach, and it's learned me to change my method of training the dogs. But I definitely like a dog now that, I would describe as being a thinker, that can sometimes maybe come back to bite you a little bit, where maybe they think a little bit too much in the beginning. They can overthink the situation a little bit. But I definitely like a dog that has, a cooler approach to stock. It respects the sheep from the get-go. It has a good presence on stock. But you don't, in my opinion, you don't need, a hard, fast, pushy dog to get round a course with. I would go for an intelligent dog all day, every day.
So when you first introduced maybe a young pup out to the sheep there, and you see one that just sort of naturally goes out around them, your eyes are lighting up better then, as opposed to one that's just bulldozing on through the middle there.
Yes, yeah. Not so keen on the ones, to be honest with you, that are kind of holding them on the fence and kind of hanging off one if they run out, that type of thing. Again, I've had them in the past, and I know if you spend a good bit of the time with them and that, you can kind of shape them into decent dogs. But I suppose maybe the older I'm getting now, and finding it's a little bit easier the other way, that you don't have to be maybe running as much or as active. A correction for them, the type that I like to work with, just if you raise your voice a little bit, it's enough. You don't have to be chasing after them, that type of thing. So for me, it just makes the job easier, and it makes it more pleasant. And I suppose maybe that's why I kind of like working with young dogs so much, because it is kind of a fun exercise.
No, fair enough. And would you go through many pups a year? Like, you get your dogs every year for the nurseries. Would you tend to go through maybe 4 or 5 pups a year, or would you be going with 10 or 15 a year to get what you're looking, or what way do you work?
No, I generally wouldn't have that many altogether now, to be honest. Probably, if we had the 4 or 5 or 6, something like that, it's kind of, it snowballed, I suppose, into, as maybe with a lot of people, it's kind of snowballed into a business as well, so to speak, trying to sell dogs and that type of thing. And I like to try and have, a few to sell every year. It doesn't always happen, but that's the objective. and like as we all know, they don't all make the grade. And like if you pick one or two and are totally dependent on one or two and they don't make the grade, then you have a problem. So like probably hovering around the 5 or 6 mark thereabouts.
No.
Sometimes you'll end up maybe getting 5 or 6, but more often than not, maybe if you end up with 3 or 4, it's probably about it. For the trial job.
Yep, yep. And have you noticed, you started about 20 years ago, have you noticed any change in the dogs in them 20 years? Or do you think it's pretty much the same as what it was? Or
The standard has got a lot stronger now than it was when I started. Like whenever I started first, I would say a lot of open trials would have been won on, the mid to late 80s points wise. And nowadays, like unless you're, on the summertime, whenever the sheep's good and you're running the nose, that type of thing, like a lot of trials, if you're not featuring in the high 90s, you're getting not at the races, so to speak. So definitely, I would say the dog has improved, and also the handlers as well. Like I think in Ireland here in particular, like it's improved greatly. Again, when I started a number of years ago, you had maybe, you would have had a handful of kind of noted handlers that you would have thought, every week that, once you would get past them, you would have a good chance. Now you could maybe put that out to 20 odd, at a lot of trials. So it's definitely the whole thing has changed in the last 20 years. It's got a lot more competitive, and it's a lot harder to kind of be at the top.
no.
One,
See, I'm running obviously in the same sort of area as yourself, like, but I've said that to people before, like most weekends you go to a trial, there's 6 or 7 handlers at least that are consistently in the Supreme for 3 years that you're competing against
yeah,
every weekend. Like, so
yeah.
they have 2 dogs each. There's 12, 14 dogs that you're competing with handlers that are in the Supreme. So as you say, there's not really much. 1 or 2 of them might have a bad run, but the rest, the
No,
rest are going to have fairly basic run.
it's definitely tough. There's no doubt about it. But like, I mean, the other side of that, the flip side of that is, like I think that's what has improved the dogs and the handling in Ireland so much, because it has got so competitive. And like, if you want to be featuring, you got to up your game. It's that simple.
No, fair enough. Right, on to the next thing then. You're judging a trial, for example. Is there anything in particular that you like to see done? I know you want obviously the perfect run, but is there anything in particular you think, right, that's what really needs to be done and done right? Some people say maybe the outruns aren't, maybe people are going too wide at their feet and they've hit it hard, or maybe people have saying that maybe the shed's not been held long enough. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you that you think that is what you need to
I,
see? Like,
I do like the dog to be positioned pretty close to the handler when setting off. Like
yeah,
when I started, that's something I think that has happened maybe in the last 10 years, which I wouldn't necessarily agree with. And I think a lot of the rules has been watered down significantly in sheepdog trialing. But whenever I started, I was always, told, or, that basically you could hold on to the starting post with your hand and touch your dog with your crook. That's the distance that your dog should be away, and if
yeah,
it's any further than that, you should be down pointing, type of thing.
yeah.
uh a dog going back behind you, is not ideal. And like, I mean, I'll admit sometimes, when some of my younger dogs, when I try to train them to a high standard early on, you can instill a little bit on them, which makes them a little wider than I would maybe like. But even they do, I still would expect to lose the points for it, if you know what I mean. Just because
Yeah.
I do it doesn't mean that I shouldn't lose points for it. But like, again, going back to the rules, like, I mean, the outrun should be in the shape of a pair, starting at the narrow end and heading out. Uh, I like to see a flowing run, if you like, when I'm judging. I like to see the dog work on the stock. I like to see the dog taking the sheep around the course rather than the sheep taking the dog around the course. Uh, just, I suppose, good stockmanship as well, like respecting the sheep. Sometimes you'll see some handlers maybe, and if they get a packet of sheep that are maybe a little bit on the flighty side or whatever, occasionally you'll see the odd handler kind of get frustrated with that, and they'll maybe start dogging the sheep a little bit, to try and kind of punish the sheep for being lively, that type of thing. Like, to
Yeah.
me, that's bad stockmanship, and you got to respect the sheep. Like, we've all been out there days where you get a packet and they don't play ball, and we can be talking to ourselves under our breath at the post, but like, you just got to get on with it, and hopefully the next day maybe be better. But you can't be disrespectful to your sheep, and you can't let the dog, like, you'll see some handlers kind of, I would say, borderline kind of abusing the sheep because, in their opinion, they've got a bad packet. I don't like to see things like that happening.
No.
You got to
You're
be,
saying a bit,
of course, professional about it.
yeah. No, you're saying about maybe talking under their breath at the post. You can't really get away with that as much now. The nationals and internationals would have been live streamed. I remember listening on the first year, listening to a few runs on it, and the dogs had a few different names. Some of them, it was funny listening back to it now to hear people talking under their breath. They didn't maybe realise that it was going to picked up on the speaker.
Yeah,
No,
I've kind of maybe learned a wee bit this last couple of years to be a little bit more tight-lipped when I'm at the post, because the Patreon channel we do, whenever we started off doing that, I kind of wear a speaker on top of my hat, and
yeah,
people maybe wonder why it's on top of the hat or whatever, but if you wear it in front of your body and you're too far away from the camera, it blocks it out. So the idea of it being on top is, that there's no interference with it. But on this particular day, I was at a trial and things just didn't go according to plan, and there may have been some bad language used on my part, but whenever Karen went to put it up, load it up to the Patreon page then and play it on YouTube, the subtitles came up on YouTube, and it said that I was talking Malaysian. So I
right,
kind
right.
of got away with it. But it has
Yeah.
learned me to kind of be fairly tight-lipped when I'm at the post, because there's someone listening when you have a microphone on you.
So is your Patreon now, is it PG or is it 18 rated now, or what way does that work? You've
No,
managed to
no,
keep the...
it's pretty much PG. We try and keep it that way.
No, fair enough, right. Nationals and internationals, is there any changes you would make to maybe the way they're being judged or anything? Do you think maybe there's an element that needs to be, or is there any way they could be improved or something? Like, is there any, are you happy the way they are, or do you think maybe there's somewhere they could be improved?
Judging is a very contentious issue. No matter where you go, should it be a football referee, should it be a boxing referee, whatever it is, when you have, a judge sport, if you like, when you have an individual kind of giving their opinion on it, it can be kind of controversial, shall we say. I suppose I was one of the judges at the National in 2012, and in my opinion and in my mind, I done it to the best of my ability, and I didn't favour anyone, kind of up or down. I didn't disadvantage anyone in any way. But there were some people that were of a very strong view that I did or that I didn't kind of favour them, But I think people's expectations can kind of get the better of them, that when their friend or their mate or whatever is in judging, they maybe expect something that they shouldn't get.
Aye.
So, having said that, if I was to judge a national again, I would be more than happy to get in on a box, or to do it individually and have my points count, because I was accused the time that I done it, or not accused, maybe it's the wrong word, but people talked about, McGee, he was the dominant one, he judged the national, the other judge did what he was told, that type of thing, but
Yeah.
just to, I have absolutely no problem writing down what points I would take off whoever I take them off, and if it's friend or foe, it doesn't matter to me who's at the post. I'm judging what I see in front of me. I'm judging what the dog does. I'm judging the lines, and I'm not, if it's someone that I'm friendly with, I'm not giving them X amount of points to the benefit before they start. Or if it's someone that I'm not friendly with, I'm not deducting them X amount of points before they start. Everyone gets the same treatment. And I think that's, that should be how judging is carried out. But I think we all know that that is not always the case. But again, it's back to the referee in the football or the referee in the boxing, that it's worldwide, and it's an issue, I suppose, that is never going to be kind of maybe fully.
Very
I would like, I don't know how you tweak it to make it a whole lot better. Like I said there, touched earlier, I do think maybe some of the rules and that has been kind of watered down a little bit too much. The shedding and that, the international shedding and that, there's certain things now people are getting away with, and I don't think they should be getting away with them. It should be done in a specific way, and you should be pointed accordingly. There's just certain wee things that could be tweaked in that, but again, if you put 10 or 20 people in a room and you ask them, to judge a particular run and take the points off, you're going to get a varied opinion on it. And as opposed at the end of the day, who's to say who's right and who's to say who's wrong? If it's there or thereabouts, there can be a point or two of difference. So, as I say, judging is a contentious issue, and how you improve upon it, I don't know. I suppose it's human nature that kind of leaves it the way that it is.
I think you mentioned there about the separate boxes. I've heard quite a few people mention it, and even in a previous chat there I had on the YouTube here, it's been mentioned about separate boxes. I suppose the only thing is, if you do them separate boxes, it completely does away with anybody saying, such and such, had more power over the other boy or woman or whatever it may be. So I suppose
as I say, the time I done it before, that was kind of the, what would you say, the Chinese whispers around the trial field, that McGee was the dominant one, and he judged the national, so just as I say, if I was to do it again, I would be more than happy to do that, to get in and do it on my own. There, just maybe one little thing, a few years ago there, I'm vice president now in Ireland here. So a few years ago there, at a national trial, there was a particular handler came to me and he said, I'm just not maybe totally happy with the points that I got there. Would you mind maybe, checking to see was it tallied up right? So I said, no problem at all. So I went away and I talked to the officials and got it checked out, and no, there was no mistake made. There was no discrepancies. That was the points that was awarded. So I went back and I informed the individual, and the response was, just that, I'm very disappointed at that. That judging is, that's terrible. That, that I can't understand how that happened. in my opinion, I had a very good run, and I should have been a lot higher up. And I says, well, funny now you just say that now. I says, it'll be up to me now to see if we can get a judge for next year's national, or from the northern region here in Ireland. Says we have to get a judge. I'll be tasked with the job of getting a judge again. And before I could kind of get finished in the sentence, they came out with, "Oh, geez, I couldn't judge it. I couldn't judge the national." But they were well able to kind of voice their opinion on the people that were judging it, but they wouldn't put themselves in that position. So, I don't think it's fair that you criticize judges if you're not prepared to put your neck on the block yourself.
No. And I always think too, like, you obviously hear people criticize judges or whatever, but as you say, there's a lot of people you ask to do it and they won't do it. Whereas if more people actually took the idea of doing it, by right then there'd be less what people maybe deem as somebody that's corrupt at it. If it was shared out more, there's more people doing the judging. Like you give it more. You would think anyway a truer reflection on what the way it should be as such. But aye.
Yeah, no, that's right. But in my experience, most of the people that criticize and kind of run down a lot of aspects to do with sheepdog trials are the people that do absolutely nothing for it. They don't host a trial, they don't run trials, so they'll sell them, help out to put out sheep, that type of thing. And they'll very, very rarely judge a trial, but they are the ones that can voice concerns the most.
Yeah. No. Right, we'll move on then. What is your thoughts with regards to breeding your own or buying? Do you prefer to do one or the other, or are you quite happy to do both?
I kind of like to... The line that we have now, I kind of like to kind of stick with it. And again, people are going to say, obviously he's going to say that because he's trying to promote it and he's trying to sell it and all the rest. But I genuinely have kind of, I suppose, figured out the best way to train them, the easiest way to train them. And I've just found that it's a much easier task now if I kind of, I kind of know the ins and outs of most of the line, and I have it fairly well sussed out how to train them. So from that point of view, I try to stick kind of, predominantly within, I don't mind taking an outside dog or an outside bitch, that type of thing, but having, I suppose, maybe 50% of my line there, to start the mix with. You
don't mind buying as long as it's your own breed through them.
Yes. And prefer, if possible, to get a blank canvas if I'm buying one, because it can take a long time to kind of try and iron out problems, that a certain dog may have. It just can be... I find now when I'm training a dog, I'm very much of the opinion of prevention rather than cure, with, not letting habits develop as such. Try and make it right from the beginning. Set yourself up, set your dog up for success rather than fail.
That's good, because that leads us on to the next question. How do you start them and when do you start them? What's the age? That ties on nicely there.
Everyone is different, and I suppose it depends on circumstances around the farm and that, what's happening. Like Silver, I started training Silver when he was around 5 months old, and at that time, all the talk was, that his date of birth's wrong. He's far older than he's saying that he is. But genuinely, at 5 months old, I started training Silver, and the other thing people said was, it's not possible to train a dog to that standard. The amount of pressure you would have to apply to a dog to get it that obedient, you just blow its mind. But with Silver and with most of the line we have now, as a correction, all you had to do was and that was enough. He took that on board. You didn't have to be shouting. You didn't have to be wheeling the stick in the air or beating your leg with it. So from 5 months on, Silver started training him, and I think had him on the trial field of the nurseries at 7 months. I think he won the nursery final at 10 months. So he's the exception to the rule.
Yep.
Depending on the dog, if they're showing an interest in that, and they're keen, and I have time to do it, and I have a liking for the dog, I have to have a real liking for a dog to take the best out of it. So maybe from 5 months to 10 months, a year old, I'll probably have them on sheep a number of times, say before they're 8-10 months old, just to see.
Yeah.
I kind of like to see what they're like, if and what the body language is showing, that type of thing on them.
And what you're going to be working off down the line, I suppose. You have a half idea what they're like. Something. Nope.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you bear with me 1 second here?
Yep.
This phone, I think the battery's maybe going a little bit down on it.
No bar.
And of course, I have no charger. Give me 1 wee second to get a charger for you. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Very unprofessional.
Not matter. This whole thing's not too professional, so it'll not you'll not pick the place.
I should keep us going now.
100%. No bar. Right. A handler from Irway, actually. He sort of knew the whole thing, but he had messaged me to ask the handlers, and I'm asking him, saying this: what would be the best advice you'd give? Whether that be just training or trialing, whatever it may be. Is there a bit of advice that you think would stand by well for somebody starting out?
Someone starting out. Don't start. It's
I've said that one a few times. So.
What advice you give a handler? Don't be afraid to ask for advice. And maybe take advice on board. Sometimes you're getting advice of someone, and should it be, sometimes someone starting out as a novice, even, could learn you something that you maybe wouldn't expect. So, take advice of different people. Just don't be afraid to take advice of different people, and watch and observe what some of the successful handlers and that are doing. A big one probably is, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
No. No, that's fair enough. Right. Before we move on any further, then, what you should have probably said there was that the best advice was sign up for your Patreon or something. You should have plugged that.
Maybe. I'm too shy to do them things, you see.
So what way is that going for you then? How many people have you subscribed, and what countries or whatever?
There's probably hovering around 150 people there, kind of constantly on it.
Yeah.
It's from all countries, really. From the home nations here to kind of Europe, Canada, America. That there's just people all over the world in it. Uh, it's something that was kind of, probably yourself is one of the people that, that suggested maybe that I should do something over the years, and different people have said to me that I should do something like that. And I was always kind of, again, maybe back a wee bit to someone described me as a perfectionist, and I didn't want to be shown to the world what I deemed to be the faults in my dogs, if you like, or the faults in me as a trainer. And that's kind of what kept me from doing it for a long time. And just a few people just kind of kept at me, and I thought, so I'll give it a go and see what happens. But I kind of quickly discovered that, my ideas of perfection were totally different to what others' ideas of perfection would be. And like a prime example maybe of that is that, I'll go out and train maybe the open dogs, and in my mind I'll have, a very good session, and, to me it was near enough perfect. Dogs working exceptionally well and just doing everything as I would like, by the book, so to speak. And then I'll go out and train maybe a young dog, and it will go not so well, and I'll be frustrated because it's not going well. And, just in my mind, it'll be a crappy training session.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Patreon channel, then the good video, in my mind, gets very few comments, and all the comments go to the one that, has the problems and is not well, that it's not good in my mind. But I suppose that has learned me that the vast majority of people maybe don't have a Becca or a Solver or a Gold, or that, that most people are working with, the challenging, type, maybe sometimes to train, and that they can relate maybe a wee bit better to those type of situations. So that's something that I hadn't kind of thought about, when I signed up to kind of do the Patreon channel. But we set out to be as honest as possible when we're doing it, and I've never been on anyone else's, Patreon page or that. I've never been at a clinic with anyone. I've never taken lessons from anyone. I've asked numerous people over the years, when starting out, for, what could I do different that, would help or whatever. But I've never actually got coaching, so to speak, on it. So when we're kind of came up with the idea of doing the Patreon and that, it was from, my idea of what it should be, and kind of showing the training of a dog and that. And I suppose the mantle that we set out with on it was, to be honest and to show it warts and all, So when we go out, or I go out to train a dog, it's mainly Karen, my wife, that does the video, and that she does all the administration end of it, if you like. Occasionally maybe Laura, the daughter, will do a little video, but it's mainly Karen. But we set out to show it all of what happens in the session. So whatever happens during the training session is what the people see. There's absolutely zero editing of any kind. So that, to me was the selling point, and that's what that's what kept me for so long from doing it, because I didn't want to show the warts and all. But it's proved very successful. And people, really like it. And people, they're commenting all the time, and putting in comments, that they find it so helpful on a particular dog and aspects and that type of thing. So,
but I suppose that's why they are sticking with it. They'll.
Yeah.
There's no point you putting on videos of everything going perfect, because they're not going to learn anything from it. The people probably want to see one of your dogs going in and making a complete mess of something, and then, because probably most of the people that are signing up are having them same issues themselves. So if they see your dog making a mess of something, they can. it's more beneficial to them rather as, you're thinking it's a rubbish video as
Yeah, no,
such, as a learning video.
that's right. That's right. Like, I mean, and the first few videos that I done, like, I had a few young dogs as well, and I was maybe one or two of the videos I used kind of silver, in the background to kind of hold the sheep, that type of thing,
Yeah.
just to, excuse me, just to keep it together, so to speak. But then I was thinking about it afterwards, and I thought to myself, well, this is a luxury that most people don't have. So, it's really unfair, if you like. So I started then kind of, trying to do it without silver in the background holding. And, I changed the areas in which I trained, and then, to smaller areas where you could have control and that type of thing. And it's going 2 years now past in May there. And, like, I think it has learned me an awful lot more in the last 2 years about training dogs than possibly maybe the 18 years prior to that. Simply because when I'm training the dog and what I'm looking at when I'm seeing the dog working, previously I would have seen all those things, but I never tried to explain it to someone else, if you know what I mean. So the fact that I'm talking about what I'm seeing has kind of trained my mind maybe to see an awful lot more than I was seeing before. And, the telltale body language and that a dog is giving off and that. And, it just has I think, honed my skill set for it a lot better.
No, fair enough. So you've 2 years, and you've a ball of videos up, wherever. Have you fell asleep yet? You say you don't edit your videos. Have you fell asleep with the field yet out of the dogs, or have you been fortunate enough so far?
Fortunate enough yet, no, we haven't fallen over yet now. There has been
Remember,
an
if
odd
you do, you have to keep it on.
Oh yeah, whatever happens, yeah, it's all in real time.
So that,
As I say, warts and all.
yeah. No, well, right. Well, moving on from the Patreon then. What would be the 3 handlers and 3 dogs? Now, not the same team. There might be, dogs, 3 separate dogs and 3 separate handlers. But what three handlers and 3 dogs have you looked up to over the years that have really stood out to you?
Whenever I started out, I think Johnny Wilson was kind of going very strong at that time. Like, I mean, and I started out not knowing anyone, as everyone does, but he had a very kind of, quiet way of handling, and I just liked watching him work a dog. I watched him with the maid bitch and that, and I actually got speaking to him in the World Trial in 2005 down in Tullamore. I was just there as a spectator, like, but only got speaking to him briefly. But he just came across as a very nice man, and just watching the videos of him on YouTube and that on One Man and His Dog, he kind of would have been a handler that I liked his method, and I liked the way he worked the dog, liked the style of dog and that. As a good handler, Michael Gallagher would be, I would call another very good handler, like a quiet handler as well, kind of quite methodical in his training and that as well. When he was running cap and that, like, he was always a force to be reckoned with. Who else? I suppose it's maybe not fair. Like, I mean, to put it down to 3 handlers, there's a number of handlers out there. Like, I mean, the obvious ones is Alad Owen, Gavin Evans, Bobby DL. They're all in their own right. Like, I mean, they're fantastic handlers. Like, this year, Kevin, we were over in England at the High Hill trials, and like, Kevin was, what was it, on the final. Yeah, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. And he deserved 1, 2, 3, 4. He's a very good handler. He's very, very capable. He's just gifted in what he does. As are them other handlers as well. But anyone on their day, when things fall into place, can be very hard to beat. But more often than not, those top handlers they tilt the scales in their favour to make it that way. That a lot of days that things do go their way.
They're always lucky. You don't get lucky. Like I suppose in that game, it's a lot of effort put onto behind the scenes. Like
that was one of the comments back when I was running Becca that I used to kind of get a wee chuckle to myself at. You'd be at a trial, and the sheep maybe wouldn't be bad, but you would see people having difficulty at the pen or the shed or that to begin around the pen. And there was one particular older gentleman, I'll not name him, but I would say everyone in Northern Ireland knows him. And he would often comment, Jesus, look at him, he got good sheep today again. McGee, he was always getting good sheep, but he never took into account how the dog approached the sheep and, how respectful the dog was around the sheep and that. And, that your initial contact at the top of the field and your lift and that is crucial with how your trial goes. So I often tell people that the Fulham Babe, where the pig goes to the top of the field and talks to the sheep and asks them to go around the field nicely. So that's the same with your lift with the dog. If you get it right, you can set yourself up for a better run than the alternative.
No bar. Well then, tell me this then. What 3 dogs have stood out to you?
Oh, 3 dogs.
It's nice because everybody's mentioned different dogs. It's just nice to hear because nobody's had the same 3, and it's nice to actually hear different names come up all the time. It's I suppose nice for other people too, just to.
When you say dogs, like dogs with their ability to run, or dogs that I would like to breed off, or what?
Just
what
dogs
that
you're going. I suppose if you think about it, there's maybe good dogs out there with lesser build or handlers, but I'm more so thinking if you go to the international over the years, is there dogs that have stood out at the international that you've seen over the years? What 3 dogs at that level? That you think like if you're in the beer tent or something, you'd be thinking, I had to go out, had to see this.
Well, the maid bites that Johnny Wilson had, I kind of liked her. I kind of liked her approach and stock and that. You really put me on the spot with that question. It's something that I never kind of. Bobby DL, whenever he was running the spot dog, he ran him very young. And a Supreme, I can't remember where it was, but he handled really well up to a point, so like his approach and the dog's approach to that time was something I really admired at that time. And I suppose I'm biased if I say that Becca, but Becca, as I said earlier on, like on the bigger occasion, she seemed to be able to rise to it. She could have been going really mediocre prior to running on trials and that, local trials and that. But on the bigger occasions, she seemed to be able to up her game. So it was always a privilege to get walking out to the post on a bigger stage with Becca, because you could be fairly confident that she was going to kind of give it her absolute best for you. We were disqualified once in the Supreme, and it was an Antrim, and it wasn't Becca's fault. It was totally my fault. We were out. We were going pretty good. We had a decent first out run, left fetch. The recast was good. The second gather was good. The first leg of the drive was very good. And on the cross drive, as we were going up on the cross drive, it popped into my head, just if I watch, I could win this. And just then we came up to the gate, and because I was thinking like that, I wasn't concentrating enough on the job at hand. And I ended up kind of driving the sheep basically into one of the panels, that basically was a gate in front of them where they couldn't go, and they stopped. Yeah. And I had taught Becca that in a situation whenever the sheep, say it was at home with ewes and lambs, that type of thing, where they were kind of static and not moving, once I called her name, if I shouted Becca, Becca would move them. And that's exactly what I done there. I called her name, and she done what I taught her to do. But that wasn't Becca's fault. That was totally my doing on that occasion.
Funny, that was the first international I'd ever been to watch live, and I still remember that run to this day. I just remember the whole stand. It just had happened, and everybody was just you heard the whole noise. Everybody, it was because the run was going so well.
Yeah, it was disappointing, but it was a very valuable lesson to me, and as most lessons in life, the one you learn the hard way is maybe the one you learn the most from. But I learned ever since that day that when I'm running a dog now, I take it one step at a time, and I concentrate on each element as I'm doing it, and I don't be thinking about the shed when I'm doing the fetch or the drive. I just do it as is, and don't get ahead of myself. Don't get complacent, or don't start to think too far ahead. One step at a time.
No, I would support Tottenham Hotspur in the football, and I think Sheepdog trials a lot like that. Whenever you think things are going well, you can be guaranteed that they're going to let you down. And it's the same with Tottenham. You think things are going well, and then they'll go out and they'll be playing they're not playing a pub team, and they'll go out and just be an absolute disaster. It's the same in the dog trials. You could be having a great run, and something just happens out of nowhere that makes no sense, and that's the game over.
Yes.
No, but right. More or less finished here. But outside of Ireland, is there a country that you sort of warm to at international that you like to see them handlers?
Scotland and Wales are is very competitive. The Scandinavian countries and that are very, very competitive, and there's a number of people in all those countries that are extremely difficult to beat on any given day. So the standard is very, very high around the world, very high.
Yeah, because I remember the Worlds away at the beginning as such, or the first few. You had maybe one or two of these European handlers or whatever, or outside of Europe, made the final or whatever. You didn't really, there wasn't that many, but now, geez, you could have, it's a ridiculous amount. The standard is last maybe 10, 12 years, it's just went right through the roof.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. Big change. A big change. There's a lot of people very, very capable of kind of winning, as I said, started trial to begin with. One hand you could kind of count, or the people that you would think are dangerous. You would need several hands now that, a lot of people if things just happen to go right for them that are very capable. So I suppose it has to be a big plus for trialing in general that the standard has raised as much as it is. It's I think dogs has improved greatly in the last number of years too. Like some people, you'll hear them saying, the dogs years ago was a lot better than they are now. But I would have a different opinion on that. I think dogs are the fine tuning of dogs now is significantly better than it was. When I started first, and I'm not being disrespectful to any handlers by saying that, but that's my honest opinion. I think the whole bar has been raised greatly in the sheepdog world.
Funny, whenever I first started watching trials, that was maybe 2005-06. You could maybe have missed one of your gates and still been in the place. And if you miss a gate now, you may as well head on home. Like it's the standard now. Standard serious. If you have a exceptional run, still, maybe only up 5th or 6th place.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, that is very difficult.
No. Yeah, what were you saying? Sorry.
2007, I won the national with Becca. I was actually on joint points. I think it was 188 with Walton Gallagher. And I actually missed the last gate. I just shaved it. I just walked past, or the sheep just walked past it on the far side. But it was good to that point, and it was very good after it, But just an example, you said, you could miss a gate and still be featuring. I missed the gate, and I was going to a runoff for the final then. There was two on the same points, myself and Walton. That was when they done the 15 over the 3 days. So myself and himself went into a runoff, and I ended up winning the national. So basically got into it with a missed gate. But it was an exceptionally good run, apart from just shaving the gate. But most likely nowadays that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be there if you done that.
It's serious. But no, that's more or less us finished. A couple of things maybe just to mention. Karen, she had sent me a text earlier to say that you're going to give her a pay rise for all the footing or whatever. So I have to let you know about that.
Yes.
So be sure to mention that.
We're working on that one. Negotiations.
And another thing is, for anybody watching, I'm probably going to be wearing this jumper from now on. I bought it there a week or two ago, and I managed to shrink it in the first time of washing it. So I'm going to wear it in these from now on. I'm going to get the use out of it. It's halfway up me now. But if anybody wondered why I'm wearing the same clothes all the time, I'm getting the use off it before I'm not going to fire it out. But James, thank you very much for your time. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of interesting things throughout that there for people to get into.
Thank you for the invitation to come on, and do this. I've done a few of them and that now, but I really enjoy what I do on the sheepdogs. I'm passionate about it. Sometimes maybe that passion has got me in trouble, but I genuinely am passionate about sheepdog trialing and that. And I've helped numerous people, starting out in that, and will do in the future. Anybody that needs any guidance or that, I'm always willing to kind of give a few pointers, that type of thing. I'm not saying that I know it all, but whatever knowledge that I do have, I'm kind of quite willing to share it with everyone. I'm lucky in what I do. It's not a job as such to me. I enjoy it. It's a passion. So not everybody in life maybe is lucky that they get to do that what they really love, type of thing. So I do consider myself very, very lucky in that regard.
Right. Well, you probably share a link or something to your Facebook, your Patreon page if anybody is watching this in the next few days that we put up. There'll probably be a link at some point up on your Facebook page. Anybody's watching this on YouTube or Facebook, like, so they'll see a link or something there somewhere if they want to go onto your Patreon and sign up to it or see what it's about.
No,
Sure,
that'll do.
take it from there.
That's
Right.
great.
Thank you very
very
much, James.
Cheers.